Hello and welcome to Thank You Five. It's a weekly show hosted by Strawdog Theater Company where we bring theater artists from around the globe to be in conversation about theater in a digital world with the spirit of gratitude and innovation. My name is Johnard Washington. I live in Chicago. I've been here for about 11 years. I'm an actor. I'm a company member at Strawdog myself, as well as Bramble Theater Ensemble. Yeah, just working, trying to make it in theater and loving every bit of it and a part of the good fight. Jasmine, tell me more about you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jasmine B. Gunter, she, her, hers. I'm originally from South Carolina, but now currently a Chicago-based director getting my MFA at Northwestern. I'm in my third year, and before that, I've lived a nomad life, so I was traveling from theater to theater, and so I was working at Hartford Stage, Seattle Rep, and Arena Stage, to name a few theaters that I was at before landing in Chicago.
Awesome. Maya?
Hey, yeah, my name's Maya Rajanovich. My pronouns are she, her. I'm originally from Northwest Indiana, so not too far outside of Chicago. But right now I am down in West Lafayette at Purdue University. I'm a senior, so I'll be graduating in like 2 weeks, which is so crazy. Yeah, thank you. I'm getting my degree in acting, and I'm also getting a degree in speech pathology. So it's been quite a busy 4 years. And when I'm done, I plan on moving up to the Windy City. So I'm really excited to hopefully see some of your faces in person once I'm up there.
You probably will. Chicago's like that. Greg, hello, hello, hello.
Hello, my name is Greg Giffroy. I use he, him pronouns. Coming to you from Chicago. Have been here for the last 10 years after graduating from the University of Iowa with my MFA in acting. I am an educator, sexual assault prevention educator, and primarily right now an intimacy professional. Doing intimacy choreography, intimacy directing on shows. Currently just opened Galileo's Daughter by Jessica Dickey at Remy Bumpo, and I am working on all 4 shows right now for the Opera Theater of St. Louis. So that is primarily what I'm focused on. And when I'm here in Chicago, which I need to be, I'm a visiting faculty at Columbia College Chicago teaching intimacy, and I am the resident intimacy consultant at Steppenwolf Theater.
Yes, just where you currently are. And last but not least, Mr. Lance.
Hi, Lance Baker, he, him, and I have been working in the greatest theater town on the planet Earth, Chicago, Illinois, since I graduated from the Theater School of DePaul University, where I was going when Nirvana's Nevermind came out. So that gives you a little sense of how long I've been in the trenches. I, do a little film here, do a little TV there. I'm a company member of Red Orchid Theater since about 2004. And in the in-between times, I do tours. I'm also a tour guide of downtown Chicago, which is something I really love, being on a bike or a bus, or maybe even this summer, a Segway. Let's see what happens. I don't know. That's kind of exciting. But seems more my speed at my advanced age. But I am excited about all your faces and excited about the future of theater in Chicago for sure. And let's talk about it.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Very, very excited about what we will talk about. And with Lance's last statement to everyone, I always ask, what is theater? What is theater to you? For me, I haven't raised my hand, but it's a community space where we all figure out where we live in a story. whether that's how to highlight that for someone else, putting our own vision or our own quest to life, bringing that to life in relations to other people's visions and statements about their lives and about their life in that piece. And, as an actor, I, show my place and I put that outward to other actors. And as an audience member, I relate or I completely say, no, I don't relate to the story. But no matter what, in the theater, I'm allowed to figure out where I lie in this. It's a way to realize from a very personal perspective where I fit in this story, and realize basically who's on my side, who's on my team in telling this, and I can share that or I can keep it to myself. But it's typically a space where I figure that out, and it's always through someone else's input. It's always a community, whether I'm in rehearsal with other people and other designers, or in an audience with other people. It's a collective experience that I get to see a little bit more about, where I get to figure out a little bit more about myself. Greg, what's theater to you?
Theater to me is any live performance that is calling for folks to come and witness. I think that that very specific component of being witnessed, as an actor, it is, yes, navigating through the discomfort of what my character is being challenged with and the world in which they're being asked to navigate. But ultimately, it is a platform for storytellers to call people in to be in dialogue in a very specific way, especially for those who otherwise would not be engaged with the folks who would be on stage, that community, the stories that comes out of those communities. So yeah, the calling in of people to be witnessed to, and then to be in continued dialogue. Like that's what it seems, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. Jasmine.
Yeah, I don't know if I said this in my introduction, but I am a director, and I feel like even though I consider myself a director, I think I would put storyteller in front of director. Theater to me is storytelling. It is like the physical embodiment of the human condition, which is what I think storytelling or theatrical storytelling is. And for me, like, theater is an escape. Like, the world it can be a very terrifying place. It can be a very violent place. It can be a very cruel place. And going to the theater is like a moment for me, or participating in theater is a moment for me to escape. And when I come back to this reality, I have learned about what it means to live in this world. Whether it is I learned more about the cruelty, or I learned more about how to combat that cruelty. I don't know, it just feels like you take a little secret of life through the act of performance, or through watching a performance that allows you to live and make this world, a better place.
Maya?
Yeah, theater to me at this moment, and I'm interested to see how it'll change over the years as I continue into like the professional world with this, but it is a suspended ephemeral moment in time. And I think it's really beautiful that no one performance, no one show that we see is ever going to be the same when it's done again, no matter how many times we rehearse it, no matter how many times we practice it. So there's that beauty in not having the same experience every time you see a story being told. I think at its core, theater to me is like humanity and finding empathy and relations in aspects of life, aspects of other people, aspects of communities that you normally wouldn't find, and challenging yourself to face those questions as they come upon you. Yeah.
I so far you guys are setting such a zen tone, and I'm loving it. I you know, the Greg, you talked about the dialogue that continues when you go see a show, or when you're a part of it, when you're also when you're participating in it. I love that about theater, and you know that it was a good piece of theater if after they've done curtain call, you're walking out and that's still what's on your mind. And Jasmine, I loved what you said, that kind of relates to what you said, Maya, is about like seeing that human, having that empathy for someone, learning it for yourself, where it becomes so personal. One of the beautiful things I think about theater um is the ability, I don't know if it's, because not everyone has empathy, realistically, but just seeing the beauty in a human being making choices, surviving, and being able to learn, like you said, Jasmine, from that, especially if you have to face it in your life. Um, and there are moments in other art forms, I think, like dance or music, where it goes through your body. But I think there's something very special about seeing human beings interact and learn and naturally, go up against each other, while in that sort of setting. That's just completely true to the theater. Lance, I was curious if you had anything to say or add to what is theater.
Oh God, nothing better than that. You guys really nailed it. I mean, all of you. The more I do theater, the less I understand it. Same with acting. The more I do it, the less I understand it. The less I know. The more I do, the less I know. It just becomes. It starts to winnow its way down into something so elemental that it would take me thousands of years of life to mirror the thousands of years that theater has been in existence on the planet, to really get my brain around what it does and why it does persevere, and why it never seems to be squeezed out. It always is necessary. Ever since the cave paintings, where you go, oh, Ugg also stabbed that water buffalo in a similar manner with that spear. And I relate to that because I did that too. And what an exciting and dangerous day that was. And just the fact that we've been doing it for so long. And I think when you say seeing human beings, Johnard, I think that's really what the next wave of theater is going to be, which is with all this AI coming at us and all this artificial images and the Pope in a puffy jacket. And I think people are going to be really hungry to be in a room and watch actual things, people moving about and speaking, things you can reach out and touch, stories that are coming out of the mouth of that person and into your ear. I have no fears for theater. It's been around a long time, and it's going to be around a long time after. And I think it's sort of, I mean, it's not an accident that so much Chicago theater was born in church basements. I mean, when you say how terrifying life is, I think that was Jasmine. There is that. That we all do need a place to commune and come together about the mysteries of life, and to have a moment together, a dialogue, like Greg said. And although the performance may change, may not change, what I love more and more doing theater is how much the audiences change every time, and what they feed back into you at the same time as you're feeding them. And it is a great, like the mission statement of Red Orchid Theater says, it's the greatest sustenance known to man. I never feel fuller like a fuller human being than after I've just seen a great show or performed in a great show with a great audience. And I hope to do it to death. And maybe that'll be the last flash that comes to me, is the final understanding. And I'll report right back to this Zoom room and tell you what I figured out.
Hey man, God is like Zoom immediately when you die. Greg, did you have something else to say?
That's a manifesto and a half that you just gave in a very, very beautiful, poetic way. What is really sticking out to me right now is the necessity of it, of the reminder, specifically after, and I mean, and still in the place, I want to acknowledge, I'm not trying to be a downer here, but it's like acknowledging that like, we're not fully out of this place. But in this place of investing in that which connects, investing in that which is a communication tool, but not necessarily that which connects, i.e. Zoom. Like it is a way of just like, of finding a way to folks who are in different spaces, but it doesn't necessarily enhance our ability to communicate with each other. It just gives us another platform to do so. But the investment in that is so necessary. And hearing Lance speak, the thing that really kind of resonated with me was folks will keep coming to the theater because there's also something very specific about you understanding that your presence, what it is, how you react, when you clap, when you have a because I mean, if you've ever been in an audience with me, I'm a very vocal human of like, like it's just, I mean, I don't go to like church or anything of that nature, but it is a matter of, as somebody who understands what it's like to be on that stage, the affirmation that that which you are speaking, the lesson that is being learned in real time through character is affecting me, but also ultimately that which I am feeding back to the performer, the storyteller up there, is changing how the story is being disseminated. Well, very much was like Maya was talking about, is just like, yeah, it is this. I mean, I hate to use like general words like it's magical, but it is that. I think actually moving out of the magical, this is how I land this plane. Moving it out of the magical, but it is undeniable. Even if we don't fully understand how we feel about what it is that we're seeing, or how it is like, how, there's some things that I've seen that like I've made jokes of this, like it rearranged every molecule in my body. Specific, like musicals tend to do that for me because like it's music, it's waves, it's energy. But like living in something that is undeniable, especially in a space, in a society that is constantly trying to invisibilize things, tell you that things aren't there. It is lovely to come to a space where you are seeking to illuminate, you are seeking to like make folks see, that I think is just so beautiful and reaffirming for my existence as a human, and specifically a Black human in this society of like, this is undeniable, this happened. How you feel about it is how you feel about it, but you see it and it is there. And hell yeah, especially because as the actors, like actors, designers, everybody on that production, it's like, yeah, I've been working on it for a very long time, so I hope people come see it. Very real, very real.
Could I tap on to both of those thoughts? So it's so interesting that you brought up AI, because like last week I got an email from the New York Times and the title of the article was, "Can we believe anything that we see anymore?" And then you got to play a little game where there was like there was a real photo, and then there was like AI generated photo, and you had to guess like which one is real and which one is AI generated, which was really hard. But I've been sticking with this nugget of, can we believe anything we see anymore? And I also don't have any fears about, theater disappearing from the world. Because in a world where we're starting to question our sight and the thing and question reality, theater is so real. The like presence of people on stage, even if it's a fictional, curated story, like those actors are real, the emotions are real, the way that you are moved is real and present. And I think in this world where we're starting to have those fears and starting to question, I do think that we will start turning towards things that feel tangible, and like theater, um, while also abstract, is something that is so tangible and real that that moves you in mystical ways.
Absolutely. Maya, did you want to say throw in some
Yeah.
initial thoughts?
First of all of that was so beautifully said. I agree with many aspects of it. I forget who said it, but theater is necessary. Whoever put that out there, I totally agree with. And I think there's something to be said and something to be learned about the time in that good old pandemic that we spent putting so much of our work digitally. And I personally learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about this practice and how I fit into it and how I feel about it, and not being able to actually do it on my feet. That was so challenging for me, as I'm sure it was challenging for all of you as creators. But I very much so view the audience as part of the experience, as part of the story. I am welcoming them into this world with open arms, and not having them there changes things for me. So I don't have a fear that theater will disappear, even with technological advances, because I think people crave that. People crave human connection, and the theater is an accessible way to find that and find stories that you can relate to. I always say, like, I don't feel that we have a full performance until an audience is there, and I make so many discoveries when an audience is there, and the energy that fills that room with a live audience is unlike anything else that I have or could experience.
Y'all are killing this question. It is it's gorgeous. I'm gonna hop on to the next one though. It was asked by me. um and I asked this in a very overall general way. It can be super specific, it can be super broad. It comes from a place of fear. I remember I was taught in high school that theater was a dying art, you know, and now that's something that I don't believe, especially, given what we've just been talking about. The further we get away being in the presence of something real and something beautiful, we want that all the more. But living in Chicago post-pandemic, there seems to be a fog, I would say, in the theater. We don't have to speak specifically to Chicago theater, but that's kind of where this question is born of, like, what is theater currently missing? And I guess what I think that it's missing is what it used to be couple hundred years ago, and you get it in specific places, and that is sort of the audience participation has sort of been shushed a bit. We know some of you have been directed or been in a piece where a director will say this, this will be a laugh line, give it time, or we all know when people will applaud. But the freedom of and power that you have in your performance, and the ability to allow the allowance of the audience member to have that and let that out. I know, Greg, you said you are a vocal audience member, and that's always appreciated. Any actor will tell you, I love it when they do that. That energizes me. But typically, in a lot of spaces, everyone's tame. And I think we've also created a culture where if someone is too vocal or if someone is too whatever, as an audience member, you're like, shh, stop, blah, 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 blah. But I personally think that theater's missing not necessarily a full sentence or whatever, but like, that response that is natural to you as an audience member thrown out to that actor, to that performer or performers, because you relate so much, or you do not agree as much. That can also inform you or your performance. um, um, I think the audience is missing the power that we have given them, that is theirs as patrons, as participants, to feel whatever it is they feel and to allow that. That could be social, that could be, um, you know, it's impolite or whatever, but um, I don't know. In that sort of space, I wish we had that a little bit more. Uh, Greg.
This is the first time this has been done on this panel tonight. I disagree,
Okay.
but slightly. It is not, I don't think it is a matter of the agency of audience is missing. I think I'm wondering who are the folks who have been told that they have agency over others, as far as who determines what decorum, what etiquette looks like in the theater. I believe, if I'm mistaken, and like somebody please correct me, I believe it was Dominique Morisseau. There it goes. I better say that Haitian woman's name right. It is a matter of who's the person who decides etiquette, or how we go about being in spaces with each other. And I feel like that conversation has come to the forefront simply because we're now talking about who are we making theater for. And that has a direct connection to like this idea of, crazy idea of like ideas, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access coming into the space. And so the stories on stage are changing and are not necessarily the stories that folks have been used to historically seeing, especially if we're talking about those whose identities have been marginalized. And so how have we empowered individuals whose intersecting identities are not of those of the storytellers on stage? How have we empowered those individuals to determine how those whose intersecting identities are being reflected on stage react to their stories? I think that is actually a very specific conversation that we need to be engaging with, because I think many of folks, unfortunately, from like sitting in audiences, and I'm talking about, and I'm not trying to alienate or be mean or an a-hole about it, but it's just like a subscriber base, an individual who have historically been catered to, are no longer being centralized as far as like who are the audiences that we're trying to get into the space. And I think in a means or in an attempt to maintain that control, have essentially began dictating how expression lives in the space, how I want to be in dialogue with the story of, I'm literally seeing myself reflected on stage, is being questioned and essentially hushed. And I'm being told that I must react in a way that doesn't make or disturb the sensibilities or makes uncomfortable those who have continuously been centralized as far as who we're speaking to as an industry, like who we're speaking to and who are the people that we want to come and witness our plays and productions that we've put on stage. Yeah, I'll end there to leave space for others.
Awesome. Maya?
Yeah, this is really an interesting conversation. It's something I honestly have not thought about until this very moment. It's like, thank you for sparking that. I guess I have a question back for you, and either of you can answer this, but that's sort of like defining what etiquette is. Do you think that there's a place where the root of that problem occurs, or do you think it's sort of widespread through many aspects of this profession?
I definitely think, kind of, what Greg was saying, art reflects life. And a lot of what we're seeing and hopefully continue to see is different faces, different bodies, different types of people on stage, where audiences are not typically may not be familiar with, and may not particularly be against, but just ignorant of, or and I think that discomfort is being seen in the world, and it can be for some terrifying. And I think I immediately think of one of the last one of the shows that I've seen post-pandemic was Choir Boy at Steppenwolf, and I remember Terrell McCraney had sort of like an insert in the program, saying like, please be vocal, please like react. It's important for this piece. And I just remember thinking like, I just remember being like, yes, he's absolutely right. For that piece, it's very important. But like, it's a shame that you have to say that. But also in a space like Steppenwolf, where there's kind of a decorum where, I don't know, I don't want to say anything wrong. Please cast me Steppenwolf. Where there is a bit of politeness, or like there is a way of acting, I guess, that a typical subscriber sort of falls in line with. And I personally think that, with our generations and younger, that sort of rule is not beneficial or does not help the work that we're doing. Because as in life, our fight and our heart is strong for, what it is we're saying on stage and what it is we find to be true. And we're I don't know, we're not a quiet people. I think, I think that we may be stepping away from it, and my saying this may be just like wanting to push it even further, but I don't know. I don't know. I just I want it to be more relaxed. I want it to be more of a conversation than it is. That fourth wall doesn't have to be there. Not necessarily involving an audience in the show, but like, you are a part of the spirit of this piece. There's a reason why we put on this production. It's we need you to feel involved in it. We need that conversation that you're gonna have after the theater, and that doesn't have to start after the theater. Like, feel those feelings, go talk about it during intermission, feel those feelings, like, yep, talk to us about it after the show. And I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. What I will quickly add to it is two things. Well, three things. One, I worked on that production. I love that production. That was my favorite. That was one of my absolute favorites. And I think a gift that Terrell was trying to offer to us was this understanding that what had become the primary means of being in community with each other was these Zoom boxes. And I think something that we all understand is this, like, if like Johnard is speaking and I start speaking, the microphones, then it's just like both people can't be heard at a time. And so it is, which leads to the third thing. I think it was a reminder of expression does not cut your expression, your cathartic release of what it is that you're seeing and how it's affecting you does not disrupt somebody else's experience or cut off or mute somebody else. The technology that we've been utilizing to operate, to communicate with each other, that is how it functions. But a live performance does not have that. And so I think it was a reminder that, hey, this has been the primary way that we've been in community with each other. We're back in the space with each other. And so that which you are saying and expressing is actually not disruptive. But I think but then there would be those who believe themselves to be the one who are determining what decorum looks like and what expression should look like and what is polite. Saying that your catharsis, your expressing of yourself in a certain way actually makes me uncomfortable, but not because of like its volume or anything of that nature. But I find that I have sat in audiences and had an experience or being in dialogue with the piece of like, yes. And I find that it's less about me being loud, but I'm seeing something and being able to connect to something that the potentially white identified individual next to me doesn't get or cannot relate to. And it serves as a reminder that this story may not be for them. And so it is like, why do you get to enjoy this and I have no access to this? It's just like, but this story that's on stage is my experience. And I want to be, because I would love to hear other thoughts on this. I would also be remiss if I did not mention that this is not a binary conversation. And so I don't want to just paint this as a black and white. This is also those of the Latinx, of the Latinx diaspora, those of Asian diaspora, and anybody, those of the LGBTQ plus community, of just like anybody whose identity has not been centralized, to be able to see yourself on stage and not just in a trauma or as a plot point is a means of celebration and joy. But understanding, unfortunately, there are some folks, it's not the fact that they don't want you to celebrate, but they want to be able to join in on a conversation that may not be for them. And so unfortunately, sometimes the byproduct of that is censorship in a way, or that is how it's perceived for me, I will say.
Awesome. Not necessarily even on that. Does anybody else have a feeling or something that they feel as a creator that theater is missing, that they may hope to see in it, or would be a part of that change in theater that is missing something?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit to the conversation that we were just having. I think I agree that it's not a binary. And then I also it's like, how do we invite people into the theater to be the fullness of themselves and to interact with our work? I think some of the most enjoyable moments as an audience member is when someone has to laugh aloud and then everyone else starts laughing because of in response to what is happening. Those have been the most magical moments. And then I don't know, I also waver in I want you to relax and I want you to bring your fullness of yourself. But I recently had this experience where this man ordered Chinese food during the show. And I'm just like, that is, I mean, I guess it's okay for some people, but it's just and obviously that person wasn't as hooked into the show, but it's how do we, I don't know, it's very complicated of how do we get you to buy into the show, buy into our experience together without disconnecting. I don't know, I think there's a difference between someone who's connected and in the work and is in call and response, and then someone who's just, not in it and somewhere else.
I guess for me, it's just a story doesn't have to be for me to try to understand and enjoy it, and seeing how it affects the people around me that may relate to it more than I do, or do relate to it more than I do. Like there's something to be learned from that. And Greg, you were talking about how that often causes what we would see as our typical subscribers to theater discomfort. There's nothing, I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is the only way that you can learn and grow as a human being. And that is something that individuals need to look within themselves to try to figure out, why do I feel uncomfortable in this situation? So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and even like even when like an audience member laughs or something and I wasn't a part of that laugh, what it does for me as an audience member is think about what is it that what did they laugh at that I missed? And either
Absolutely.
completely over my head, I don't get it, or like, oh shit, that was smart. That was a choice, or like that was them speaking their truth in some sort of way. And yes, Jasmine, when I when I say like you should be comfortable, you should not be at home comfortable. Like you should definitely be present. Like it should never get, hopefully never get that ridiculous or I don't know. Hopefully you're not that much of a disturbance. There are annoyances, and we talk shit about them backstage. Like, did you hear this motherfucker order Chinese food during the, but yeah, I that's hilarious. I want you to be comfortable, but not that comfortable.
Yeah, there's a reacting to that which you are seeing, and then there is centralizing yourself and making yourself more important than everybody else's experience. Like I think there's a very clear distinction between those two things. Is it connected to what it is that we are collectively seeing and interacting with? Or is this a moment that is about you, that you're trying to then centralize and put the focus on yourself? And that the disturbance is just like, what we've all paid for to come watch is that which is in front of us. And now you, person in the audience, now you have stolen the focus of what is happening here. And to me, like, there's a great distinction between that. Lance, I just want to pass it over to you. I see that you've unmuted a couple of times. I just want to make that space for you, brother.
Oh God, this question to me is awesome. I mean, I know I compared theater to church before, but I don't mean like the sort of pews full of zombies, white Protestant, just sitting there and only contribute when it's hymn time. I want a revival feeling. I do want participation. I don't want people ordering Chinese. I mean, I'd like their reactions to actually have something to do with what's happening on the stage. But God, some of the best moments are when my favorite audience member is the one who laughs at a ridiculously inappropriate time. Like something that nobody else would ever find funny. But it was still related to what was happening on stage, and it taught everybody a little bit about the human condition at the same time. My least favorite audience member is the one who turns to that person and is like, shh, like, we all gotta love the student matinees, right? Like 50% of my favorite theater experiences are when the audience is just full of people who already know each other and are sort of hopped up on sugar, whatever they just ate before they came in, and they're vocal and they're engaged and they are at home, but they are all at home together. They form their own community in the audience, and we as performers need to have a give and take and create something new out of that new relationship. And the more you lean into that, without it sort of being like fourth wall-y and sort of sacred, and here's this piece of art that we put on the wall for you to look at and admire. I don't want any of that at all. I want by the end of the show to feel like the audience is just as much on stage as the actors are, because we are all in the same room. That's kind of the larger point. There's no too loud a laugh at all. I love the verbalizations. I love it all. And the more the merrier. So I love that suggestion. When you ask me what's missing from theater, yes, in the pre-show speech, unwrap your candies, turn off your phone, and open up your eyes and your mouth and your mind and be here with us, and feel free to have whatever reaction you want to have to what's happening, because it's going to do is feed the room and feed the freedom of an audience to have that cathartic moment, as a group.
The student matinee is like the best audience ever. It's like they're laughing at you and they're also laughing with you, and they're laughing at all of the inappropriate things that like they can't laugh at home. Like it's just like the love that they give is just so beautiful and outstanding to just watch them just like let loose.
It's unfiltered and honest. That's it. It's like it's unfiltered and it's honest. Like, yep, that's it. That's all I got. I love it.
I was wondering if any of y'all had any opinions on pieces of technologies that you're interested in implementing into projects that you would see. I know, Jasmine, you talked about AI and like, I remember on the last show I was speaking about how I actually felt technology was missing on stage as much as it's used in real life. I don't know if that's like, I don't know whose choice that is overall. There's no one right answer, whether that's directors. I don't have a director's eye yet, where it's like that pulls focus, that's something that's distracting, or if we're like afraid to tiptoe in that area, because we're very proud of real life on stage. But I personally, I like the idea of having more screens and using them effectively, because screens are so present in our real life. And just seeing what that would look like, to me, that looks like an experimental piece. Like if I were to direct something, just seeing what that looks like, with human beings and, interwoven in that life. But, obviously the question's open. Is there any sort of technology specific, or, Greg?
I would act.
Oh, never mind.
Oh no, sorry.
No, you can go ahead first. I'll go after.
Oh yes. Thank you. I would actually like to see less technology on stage. The only reason for that, don't get me wrong, like I love watching how those worlds interact with each other. One of my favorite things to watch, because I also used to work for them, is the Blue Man Group, and just like that. I mean, it's technology. That interaction with technology and like how that plays in, because technology, because it's become so integrated in our lives, it's kind of become its own language, and it's in an odd way, it has become a universal language that kind of transverses the language that separates us, the spoken language. My issue with it is, I talk often, specifically when I'm doing my intimacy work, about understanding the separation of like words in particular. Like, to create a deloaded space, I must give a self-care cue, another word that means that calls for a pause, a breath, a moment, because I understand that the word stop means that what it means outside of the space, it means the same thing inside of the space. So there's no way I can deload it or make it mean something different. I think the same thing, unfortunately, applies to technology, especially if we're talking about live performance, because so much technology is used to actually disconnect from where you physically are. Yeah. It is an escapism, whether it is for entertainment, whether it is like connecting me to like my job through email, or like, so it is specifically what it is utilized for in our society is to transport you out of the physical space that you're in. And so in a medium that is specifically trying to make sure that you remain present because it is live, it is happening in the moment, I fear that even though it would usher in an opportunity to really explore some really cool things, I find that if it is not integral to the story that's being told, it may actually have the opposite effect. This is not to say
Absolutely.
that it hasn't been successful. Like I've seen technology successfully used on stage, but I think the more and more that we start using it in live performance and interactions, I find that that separation between what it means outside of the space and what it means inside in the space, in the live performance theatrical space, may actually be in conflict with what it is that we're trying to do. I don't know what that harmony looks like. And I've specifically used the word harmony, not balance.
Jasmine, were
I literally was just having this conversation with a friend this morning, and they had the same sentiment of like, I want to see more screens on stage. I want to see more technology on stage because that's the world that we live in. And I think I take the middle road of like, or I'm just thinking about like we've all seen shows where like cassette has been replaced by projections, and I typically don't think those shows work. But like again, like that word harmony, like if we're using technology to enhance the connection between people, I think that's a difference versus using technology to replace human connection or to replace something else.
absolutely, Lance?
Yeah, I'm kind of a middle grounder too, Jasmine. I've seen it work great. I've seen it work terribly. I mean, in movies, they had a long time where they were using green screens, and it never sort of got into that uncanny valley where people were buying that this person was actually standing in this majestic field where they were actually just standing in front of a giant green screen and it was just added on later. Now movies, to make it look more realistic, they will actually have a huge screen and a huge projector, and they will actually project that field behind the actor, and somehow that you can somehow buy it more. So I think it just depends on how it's used. I mean, I don't think people necessarily want to see technology because it's a part of their lives. I think people just want a show, I'm all into like the black box and the white light and the actors interacting with you, two planks and a passion. That's all you need to put on a good show. But, as soon as you start hanging up the Licos and Fresnels and, blackouts and lights up, and there's different warmth and coldness to the light scheme and the sound design. I mean, this is all just sort of layers of things that you use to just enhance a story. Don't detract, and don't add necessarily. Don't make it a separate thing. But, at the best kind of technology is the one you just sort of don't notice after a while, the fanciest sets, the most expensive lights, at a certain point, it really just does become a backdrop for a group of humans on stage to get together and tell a story and interact with each other. What I'm most excited about is a lot of people are gonna hate me for saying this, but Zoom rehearsals. We're all sort of tuckered out on Zoom after the pandemic. We got roped into seeing a lot of our friends do these productions on Zoom. And, it's just sort of where they take a piece that's supposed to be seen on stage, and then they stick a camera on it and they expect it to have the same result. But there's so many things that get lost. I mean, if you're watching an actor and you're live in the room and you see that actor go from stage right to stage left, that's a huge thing. That's blocking. That's a storytelling technique. That's a movement. That person has intention. You're watching that character follow through with that intention to try to get something he wants. On a screen, the camera follows that actor and the actor just stays right in the center and the backdrop moves. So there is no dynamism to it. There's no it doesn't communicate. That's just one example. But what I love about Zoom, and I haven't seen it used yet, but I love the fact, that I don't have to leave the house, especially in a Chicago winter. Just don't make me come all the way down to the theater every time, But also equity rules, 8 hours, you take the breaks here, you do that there. There is a lot you can do just with the actors and the directors in a Zoom room to hone performances. Because when it comes right down to it, I mean, you do want to be in the space, but there's a lot to be gleaned and a lot of extra hours. I'm talking Russian hours, you can put into a rehearsal process where you just really sort of you got to log in time of acting and reacting, acting and reacting. And it's not all that, I don't feel it's all that dissimilar from being in a rehearsal space, because all you're doing is looking at a face. You're watching that person and you're listening to the tone of their voice and the facial expressions they put on, and you react, and then you give back, and then you react. I think Zoom can meet us halfway there and might give us a little extra a leg up, so that when we do finally land on the stage, I mean, we're already used to the concept that there's a rehearsal room and then there's the theater. So why not add an extra step in there? There's a Zoom room, a rehearsal room, and a theater. I'm all in favor of the more rehearsals, the better. I love that. I love that sense of really getting something in your bones and making it second nature. And I'm looking forward to hopefully directing shows and trying to incorporate that. I just want to plant that bug out there so actors don't look at me funny when I propose it.
That's a hot take. I'm gonna say that.
Maya.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about technology on the stage, but now I kind of want to talk about Zoom rehearsals. So I think I'm gonna touch on that. I have to respectfully disagree with that take. For the most part, I will say that I think that there is value in having extra time to meet, especially not leaving the house. And there is a lot of, world building that can be done over Zoom, and like, let's delve into a script together. We don't necessarily all have to be in the same room to do that. So like, I'll give you that. But in my experience, there's just something so collaborative about being in the room with other people, and we are a community, and often we become a family, and I think, to connect to some of my thoughts about technology on the stage, I go to the theater often to escape looking at screens, to escape having to interact with technology, which we do so often on a daily basis. And rehearsal is similar in that way. I find myself not really ever looking at my phone or my computer during rehearsal. So I don't know how I would feel if that process took place on a screen, but I'm interested to see what other people have to say about that.
At least the table work. Can we at least agree
Sure,
table work? We don't
I
need
can
an
give you
actual
that.
table.
I can give you that.
Thank you.
Jasmine, I feel like you really have something to say. Am I wrong?
I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't know. There's just something about Zoom where you just can't feel people. And I feel like that's so important in the rehearsal room. It's just to feel the energy of other people. I think you can do a lot of like technical work over Zoom, but it doesn't replace the connection and the vibes and the energy that is flowing between different people. I mean, if I have to do table work over Zoom, I would, but I wouldn't be happy.
I feel like I could see table work on Zoom.
Yeah.
Like just a little bit of table work. But kind of like, there was an article during the pandemic when Zoom was like making all the money, because that's the way everybody communicated. But there was like a new phenomenon, like Zoom anxiety. Like you're looking at these different squares and you're like, oh, this person's like thinking this about the way I'm this person coughed when I said this statement. They hate me, or like this person is, which may be like a little harmful to a rehearsal. But I again, it's theater. Like there's no wrong answer. There's preferences, but we at bottom we all need we all want to be in the room together.
And to add to that, like how often it is that you're doing projects with people that you've never met before, and to start that process behind computer screens, it just does not give the same effect for me as it would walking into a room, shaking somebody's hand and being like, yeah, we're about to do this together.
That is true. That is very true.
Yeah.
And what I'll quickly add is just like, it's also, there's an element of begin how you intend to move forward. And I think there is something I know that was like so distressing to me, and talk about anxiety inducing, was I I still now, even though like I haven't performed since 2019, like I absolutely, well, performed on stage. Like I did do like I shot a couple of things in 2020, but the thing that drove me mad and still kind of does is specifically doing theater auditions on film. It is like you are not watching me in the medium in which I'm going to express this. And so you can't truly get a gauge about like what this looks like, because ultimately this is nothing close to what the final product is going to look like. And so, whereas I see the value in like, especially, I mean, I've been through 10 Chicago winters. Trust me, I see the value of not having to make that transport in February, baby. I feel it in my bones. Literally and metaphorically speaking, feel it in my bones. Because spring's trying to make it out and winter's just trying to hold on to Chicago right now. But it is a matter of, very much as Jasmine was talking about earlier, it's like, how do we then find the harmony of like making sure that it doesn't replace that which is integral to any process, which is the time to be in the room together to build together. And so I think it's actually a really beautiful idea as far as like economy and saving time and money, specifically for artists who don't get paid enough. I just fear that the cons of it, or what it would be detrimental to, is the fact that these tend to be really short processes, and any opportunity we get to like build together, especially being asked to navigate and live in a world together for several weeks at a time, I think unfortunately folks may miss out on that. So I'm not in complete disagreement with the agreement, but it is like I'm seeing that is, I think that, you know, is important. And I would hope that doesn't get lost in us trying to find a different way of working. Jasmine.
I actually just want to, and that was like a perfect statement. So I'm good.
Lance?
Kyle said to bring the hot takes. And I appreciate all the pushback. No, you're absolutely right. Perfect world. You want to roll around together, smell the sweat, and the breath and all of it. But yeah, well, this video will live on YouTube in perpetuity. So I'm going to check back in with this in about 10 years and see how we're all doing on that subject. But yeah, because some people, I just want to work and I want to rehearse and I want to get into it and I want to get under the skin of something. And I don't want to necessarily be dictated by sort of what the actors equity rules are on rehearsal. I'll work for free behind the scenes all the time. So I sometimes I just feel like, this is just a way to add a couple extra layers to the cake is all. So, but not to say any of you were wrong. You're all absolutely right. But time will tell.
Well, I just want to say, Maya, Lance, Greg, and Jasmine, thank you all for this beautiful time with us at Thank You 5. We really do appreciate tonight's episode. Kyle, thank you for producing the show. Office Hours Global and the DVE store. Thank you so much. Thank You 5 is made possible by Strawdog Theater Ensemble. It's run on a free theater model, where we live on donations given to us by the community. That's how we keep the thing rolling. You can find out information for donating there at strawdog.org to support our work. And also here, if you want to be a part of this panel, and that's for you guys too, Jasmine, Greg, Maya, and Lance. If you have friends that you're like, hey, I think you have something to say on this show, tell them to visit strawdog.org. Listeners, if you want to be a part of it, or the right person who could add to questions thrown out tonight or like tonight, tell them to visit strawdog.org. We want to see as many people as possible, as not limited to Chicago, anybody and everybody. Tell them to visit there to be a guest on Thank You 5. Thanks you all for watching. We'll see you next week.